A billionaire thought he could get away with anything, even humiliating a royal guard in front of a crowd. But what started as a harmless joke turned my life into a nightmare. Police raids, media backlash, and a storm of hate, all because of his arrogance and money. What happened next? Well, you won't believe it. Let me set the scene for you. So, we're in London, right outside Buckingham Palace. You know the drill, tourists everywhere snapping selfies, gawking at those royal guards who stand like marble statues in those bright red uniforms and those ridiculous furry hats. I mean, they look like props from a historical movie, but hey, it's their job. Now, meet our protagonist. Yours truly, Sean Harper. I'm 29, a black guy from New York, trying to hustle my way through life by guiding rich American tourists around Europe. Easy money, right? Wrong. Not when you've got a guy like Ronald Kinsley in your group, this man. Imagine every annoying rich person stereotype rolled into one. White, 45 years old, with too much time and even more money. He's the kind of guy who probably thinks he invented social media. His entire life is one big live stream, and everyone else, just background characters in his little drama. So there we were, standing near the gates of the palace. The tourists were mesmerized by the guards. You'd think these folks just saw Bigfoot or something. Meanwhile, Kingsley? He looked bored, and for a guy like him, boredom is dangerous. "Yo, Sean," he says, smirking like he's about to announce something groundbreaking. "Time for some real action." Before I could ask, "What do you mean by that?" he pulled out a can of construction foam. Yeah, you read that right. Construction foam. Where the heck did he even get that from? "Wait, what are you?" I started, but it was too late. With a gleeful chuckle, Kingsley aimed the can at one of the guards and sprayed that sticky white foam straight into the poor man's face. The entire scene froze. Tourists gasped. Cameras whipped out like they were in some paparazzi frenzy. A guard, now looking like a marshmallow monster, didn't even flinch. He just stood there, silent as ever. But his partner? Oh, he wasn't having it. "This is assault," the other guard said, his voice as cold as a January breeze. "You will regret this." Regret? Oh yeah, that word echoed in my brain like an alarm bell. Kingsley, being the oblivious idiot he was, just laughed it off. "Relax, buddy. It's just a little foam. Lighten up." He looked around, grinning like a kid who just pulled a prank in class. Meanwhile, I'm standing there, feeling like I just got caught in a slow-motion train wreck. My stomach dropped as I noticed police officers weaving through the crowd toward us. The other tourists were shifting awkwardly, some whispering, some backing away like they didn't want any part of this mess. I didn't blame them. "Sean, come on, man. Handle this," Kingsley says, waving a hand like I'm his PR manager. "These Brits have no sense of humor, right?" "Yeah, right," I muttered under my breath, grinding my teeth so hard I thought they might crack. Handle this? How the heck was I supposed to handle this? This wasn't some harmless joke. This was about to blow up faster than a viral TikTok scandal. The cops were closing in, their faces a mix of disbelief and stern authority. Great. Just another day in paradise. I had a gut feeling this wasn't going to end with a polite warning. Nope, this was just the start of something way worse. Morning hit like a punch to the gut. Sean Harper woke up to his phone vibrating like crazy. At first, he thought it was just a couple of notifications, but nope, this was full-blown chaos. His name was plastered all over social media, and not in a good way. Turns out, that little incident with Kingsley had gone viral, and by viral, I mean trending everywhere. The hashtag #RoyalGuard incident was taking over the internet. One news article screamed, "American tourist humiliates Royal Guard." Another read, "Assault on tradition, disrespect from overseas." Reporters were tearing the story apart, milking every second of drama. There were clips, slow-motion edits, even dramatic background music added to videos. Like, really? Did they think this was some kind of Netflix series? Sean's phone wouldn't stop. Calls, messages, DM requests from people he didn't even know. Half of them were journalists looking for a statement. The rest? Haters. "You're a disgrace to Americans. How dare you disrespect our heritage? Go back to where you came from." The comments kept coming. Sean felt the heat rise in his chest. He wanted to throw his phone across the room, but what good would that do? Instead, he took a deep breath and muttered, "Okay, stay calm. This can't get worse, right?" Spoiler alert, it absolutely could. By the afternoon, Sean got a call he'd been dreading. The police wanted him down at the station for questioning. He didn't even get a chance to explain himself before they slapped him with a ridiculous accusation, being an accomplice to a so-called attack on royal traditions. "Attack? Seriously?" he muttered as he paced outside the station. "I'm a freaking tour guide, not some mastermind plotting against the crown." But it didn't matter what Sean thought. In the eyes of the law, he was guilty by association. Kingsley might have been the one with the foam can, but Sean was the easy target. Why? Because Kingsley was rich enough to lawyer his way out of anything. Meanwhile, Sean, he didn't have that luxury. Inside the interrogation room, things went from bad to worse. Two detectives sat across from him, their faces practically oozing smugness. One of them, a middle-aged guy with a permanent scowl, leaned forward. His tone was casual, but there was venom underneath it. "You know, people like you always think they're victims," he said with a sneer. "Tell me, Sean, was this all part of some protest, an attempt to humiliate our traditions?" Sean froze for a second, his mind racing. He clenched his fists under the table, but forced himself to stay cool. He knew exactly what was happening here. They weren't just accusing him, they were baiting him, trying to get him angry, make him slip up. "Look," Sean said, keeping his voice steady, "I'm just a tour guide. I didn't plan anything." "I had no idea Kingsley was going to pull that stunt." "Sure you didn't," the second detective said, scribbling something in his notebook. The sarcasm was thick enough to cut with a knife. The questioning dragged on, and Sean felt like he was stuck in a never-ending loop of accusations and stereotypes. No matter what he said, they twisted his words. The worst part, he could see it in their eyes. To them, he wasn't just some innocent bystander. He was already guilty for the simple fact that he was there, and maybe for being someone they didn't want to believe. When he finally walked out of the station hours later, his head was pounding. But the nightmare wasn't over. As soon as he checked his phone, he saw that the internet had already sentenced him in the court of public opinion. The comments had gotten nastier. Racial slurs, threats. It was all there. Even some people he thought were friends were starting to ghost him. But just when Sean was about to lose all hope, help came from the most unexpected place. Enter Layla Green, 23 years old, firecracker activist, and a rising star on social media. Layla wasn't just some random influencer. She had a reputation for exposing corrupt officials and police misconduct. If there was one person who could turn this mess around, it was her. And she wasn't wasting any time. "Sean Harper," she said, grinning confidently during their first video call, "you've officially been selected as the internet's latest scapegoat. But don't worry, we're going to flip this narrative on its head." Sean raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? And how exactly do you plan on doing that?" "Simple," Layla replied. "We hit back with the truth. We'll get your side of the story out there, show people what really happened. Trust me, once they see how the system is treating you, things are going to change." Sean wanted to believe her. For the first time in days, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't in this alone. But deep down, he also knew one thing. This wasn't going to be an easy fight. The system wasn't going to back down without a fight, and neither was he. If you thought things couldn't get any worse, think again. Sean had barely caught his breath when the police decided to up the ante. They rolled up to his house early one morning with a search warrant. The reason? Some anonymous tip claiming he was hiding illegal substances. Yeah, because that totally makes sense for a guy whose biggest crime was walking next to a billionaire with a foam can. Sean stood by, arms crossed, as they tore through his place like they were filming the next big crime drama. "Be careful with that," he snapped when one officer nearly knocked over a framed picture of his mom. "Just doing our job," the officer replied with a shrug that said, "We don't care." After what felt like hours, they found absolutely nothing. Big surprise. But that wasn't the point, and Sean knew it. This was a message. "We're watching you." Layla wasn't having any of it. The minute she found out, she went into full battle mode. Within hours, she launched a live stream. It wasn't just a rant, it was a full-blown expose. She played clips from Sean's interrogation, highlighting every disrespectful, borderline discriminatory comment the detectives had made. "See this right here?" she said, pointing to the screen. "This is what happens when they can't pin you for something real. They try to break you in other ways. But guess what? We're not backing down." The video exploded. Millions of views rolled in faster than you could refresh the page. People were furious. Hashtags like #JusticeForSheehan and #ExposingTheSystem started trending worldwide. Soon, protests erupted across cities. Crowds gathered in front of British embassies, chanting Sean's name and demanding accountability. Even the media, which had been eager to roast Sean a few days ago, began to change its tune. British journalists started digging deeper into the police department's history of misconduct. Editorials condemned the overreach, and eventually, the pressure became too much for the authorities to ignore. The Home Secretary went on live television to announce an independent investigation into the handling of Sean's case. Sean felt a glimmer of hope, but it didn't last long. Enter Ronald Kingsley, once again proving that wealth can twist any situation to your advantage. He reached out to Sean through his high-powered legal team with an offer. Kingsley would publicly take full responsibility for the incident at Buckingham Palace. But there was a catch. Sean would have to sign a non-disclosure agreement and drop any legal claims. "You can walk away from all this right now," one of Kingsley's lawyers said smoothly. "No more police harassment, no more media circus. You get your piece, we get ours." Sean mulled it over. He was tempted. Who wouldn't be? He could finally get his life back. No more drama, no more threats. But then he remembered something his mom always used to say. "Never let anyone think they can scare you into silence." He glanced over at Layla, who gave him a subtle nod of encouragement. That was all he needed. Sean stormed into the next meeting with Kingsley, his jaw set and eyes blazing. "You think money can fix everything?" he said, his voice ice cold. "Screw you." The room went dead silent. Kingsley blinked, clearly not expecting that response. For the first time, Sean saw a crack in the man's arrogant facade. The case hit its climax in court. By now, the whole world was watching. Every major news outlet covered the trial as Sean's lawyers tore apart the prosecution's flimsy case. Layla's footage of the police interrogation was played in court, exposing the blatant bias Sean had endured. The judge didn't hold back in the final ruling. The charges against Sean were declared baseless and politically motivated. The courtroom erupted into applause as Sean stood there, finally free. He looked around at the crowd, activists, journalists, supporters who had fought for him, and felt an overwhelming sense of relief. As for Kingsley, his reputation was in shambles. His name had become synonymous with privilege and injustice. Major business partners dropped him like a bad habit, and public trust in him evaporated overnight. Outside the courthouse, Sean took a deep breath of cool, fresh air. For the first time in weeks, he felt like he could finally breathe. "You did it, man," Layla said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Told you we'd turn this around." Sean smiled. "Yeah, we did." But deep inside, he knew this was bigger than just clearing his name. He had stood up against a system designed to crush people like him, and he had won. Sometimes, fighting for the truth means taking on the whole world, and sometimes you actually come out on top. What would you have done in Sean's situation? Do you think he made the right choice standing up for himself instead of taking the deal? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you or someone you know ever faced a similar situation of injustice or discrimination? Let us know your stories. Your voice matters. Don't forget to like, share, and spread the word. This story was created with the purpose of raising awareness about social injustice and systemic bias. Together, we can shine a light on these issues and work towards a better, fairer world.